Hugh Freeze says Auburn has got to get back to running the ball and maybe scale down the playbook a little bit. Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Corps. I'm your host, Mike G. Turn us up, turn us on. Nothing really to turn out to this week. Auburn.
We can't even keep a straight face, Mike. We can't even do it. We can't even do it.
It's become comical at this point, Jacob. On today's show, we're going to talk about some comments that Hugh Freeze made on the SEC teleconference about his team, about running the ball, maybe scaling down the playbook. I think the word that he used last year was shrink the playbook, but let's just start with running the ball. Yes, Hugh, you have to get back to running the ball. We've been here. We have been here with Jarquez Hunter underutilized, and it felt like Baylor was the great breakthrough for Hugh Freeze. Yes, they stuck to the run. There was no reason to pass the ball a million times. The run was working, but they came out on that first drive versus Baylor, and they got stopped, and they went back to the run. Feels like they just abandoned the run altogether. Damari Alston, 2 carries. Jeremiah Cobb, 6 carries. One source told me that they said that it was like, hey, are these guys being punished?
Yeah. It's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's what it feels like. It's like, you know what? You had a bad week of practice, so we're not going to give you the football, Jeremiah Cobb, which is not true, by the way. It just seems that way. It's like, man, what did these guys do, like in a former life or something, to be running backs at Auburn? And look, if you're these guys, and I know that this is the case, man, these guys are mad. They're upset. They're irritated because they were sold something that simply is not happening. Man, I know Darrell Robinson is still not okay and still not healthy and back to 100%, but it's like, man, think about Damari Alston. Think about a guy who waited his turn, Mike, to be the man, and now that he's in a true battle with Jeremiah Cobb, who has looked really good, they just simply don't get the touches. Man, if I'm Damari Alston, I'm livid right now. I am being a senior on this team in that running back room that simply doesn't run the football. And we thought this was like impossible to be in this situation again after last season, right? Where Hugh Freeze openly admitted, yeah, we had one of the better running backs in the SEC with Jarquez Hunter. We probably should have ran the ball a little bit more. We were like, yeah, you think? But maybe he figured it out, right? Maybe everything was okay. And with your 3-headed snake, your 3-headed monster of Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, Darrell Robinson coming into the start of this season, it was inevitable that Auburn was going to run the ball. It was a fact that Auburn was going to run the ball. It was going to happen that Auburn was going to run the football. And yet here we are. Here we are asking the same questions, listening to the same answers, and seeing the same problems on the field, Mike. It's exhausting when you think about it.
For reference, when we talk about what happened last year with Jarquez Hunter, Dylan Sampson led the SEC in rushing. He had 258 rushes. Jarquez Hunter came in at 187 rush attempts. Jacob, that's 71 more rush attempts than Jarquez Hunter got. At 6.4 yards per carry, Jarquez Hunter would have had 454 more yards, which would have easily made him the SEC's leading rusher at nearly 1,700 yards rushing, topping Dylan Sampson by about 200 yards. I don't know what to do with this. And so you have running backs in the same mold. I thought that we found out with the burst that we saw in a game that was stingy against the run versus Oklahoma. The Jeremiah Cobb still has, man, he's got guts, dude. He can run between the tackles and he can burst a big one on you. You outrushed Oklahoma in a game that did not have a lot of rush yards. And then there was Texas A&M, which I noticed this in our film review session for our patrons. People were moving the ball on A&M on the ground.
Yeah.
It's not like they were some run-stopping juggernaut. There's
A&M
no
was one of the
excuse.
worst defenses in the country. They were the worst defense in the SEC when Auburn traveled to Kyle Field. That's the problem. They were statistically the worst defense in the conference, and Auburn still found a way to not move the football and not score on that defense.
Yeah, just depressing. So let's fast forward to this year, because we're 5 games in. Now
Mhm.
I've talked about that first 6 game stretch, and again and again and again. Here's the schedule for everybody at home. The goal was start 3-0, and then win one of your first 3 SEC games. I just did not think we would be 2 games into the SEC schedule, and Georgia would be the one that you needed to get to start 4-2 in your first half. I still think there's a run that could be had after Georgia if you can get it together, but that Missouri game looks tougher now. I still would log Kentucky as a win. Arkansas, toss it up, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, toss it up. You could still lose 3 out of your next 5 after Georgia if you continuously move that floor lower, which is the problem here, right? The problem is that the
Yeah.
floor is still way too low for a team that has as much talent as Auburn has. Now, they focused on the skill positions, and somehow everybody's getting screwed. I, Jacob, I don't understand this, right? Like, it's not as if Cam Coleman is getting all these targets and
No.
this is an offense in crisis right now. But you can stabilize the game by running the ball, continuing to take deep shots. Um, I we're again in the second half. We'll talk about the idea that they need to shrink the playbook because that's another very special thing that he said. And if any of this sounds bad, I get it because you're running out of things to say that are palatable, except for some of
Yeah.
these things that we're hearing, these extraneous things that we're hearing, must have some truth. But
Well, what's
you can't go out and say, oh well, maybe I shouldn't have golfed as much this summer.
yeah. Well, that's what's so just fascinating here to me, Mike, and not in a good way, but every time Hugh Freeze talks to the media, and look, I like Hugh Freeze. Okay, he's a good dude. I've had several sit downs and conversations, as have you, with him. I mean, he's a good guy. Okay. But when it comes to him being a head coach, every time he steps in front of a microphone, he's speaking like he's a fan. He's speaking like he has no control, like he can't fix it, like he's not the one in charge. He says, "Man, Auburn, we that team's got to run the football some more." He said it on Wednesday in his weekly SEC teleconference that he says we've got to commit to running the football again, even if it's a 2 or 3 yard gain. He's saying that like he's not the one calling plays. He's talking like he's not the head coach of the program. It's like you and me sitting on a podcast saying, "Hey man, this team's got to do this moving forward to be successful." That's how Hugh Freeze is talking, like he does a podcast or a radio show rather than him being the man who can call the plays and calls the shots. I don't understand this, and it's not even defensive. Like he's not trying to play victim every time he talks to the media or has to answer questions. He's like, yeah, we got to do this. Yeah, we probably should have done this. Like, yeah, make a couple plays, you probably win. And that's it. That's what he leaves it at. It's like, man, that's so like you want to get mad at it, but you can't. You physically can't say anything about it because he's admitting that he's wrong. He's just not doing anything about it. And I think that's where fans are really starting to get fed up, or some are even past that point by now, to where, man, you can talk about it all day, but until you do something about it, nobody's going to be happy and the results aren't going to change. And that's what's worrisome about that schedule that you just showed. It's the idea that here we are again, putting all of this pressure on one big time game for Auburn, a game that they haven't won in this scenario in several years now, with Georgia coming to town, then Missouri coming to town, who will be a top 25 team. You still have Vanderbilt, who's a top 25 team on that schedule. Arkansas can put up a boatload of points in a hurry.
Yeah.
Kentucky's fine, and then Alabama's on the schedule too. It's just the light at the end of the tunnel is non-existent, and Auburn is just completely going in the wrong direction.
Yes, this is gonna be a challenge for him. But even if you go on to beat Georgia, I think it's not going to do anything to ease anybody's mind that you've got it fixed. Right. Like people aren't going to start worrying until the
Yeah.
season's over and Auburn has at least 8 wins in the bucket.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about that. Right. Like you've got to turn in wins, and they're going to doubt you from now until the end of the season
Yeah.
because you have not proven that you are worthy of that trust
And
from
I'll
the
say
fan
this
base.
too. A win over Kentucky in October or November, whatever the date is on that game, a win over Kentucky doesn't make up for the loss at Texas A&M. A win over Arkansas doesn't make up for the loss against Oklahoma. I'm sorry, it doesn't. Those are two different beasts. Auburn is not in a spot to be favored or have confidence in any of those games, which is a separate conversation. But I said that preseason, just because you start bad out of the gate and clean it up down the stretch against lesser competition doesn't make everything okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Good stuff, Jacob Goins. Look, let's get to the break here. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the idea that Auburn needs to shrink the playbook for this roster, or maybe for the coaches. Who was that for? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors, our friends at AIM and Associates. That's AIMA. Markets go up, Jacob. Markets go down. What matters is having experienced professionals guiding your investment through every cycle. Abel's I&O Moore and Associates have been doing just that since 2003. They currently manage over 200 million in assets for clients in more than 25 states and 2 foreign countries. Their service is personal and tailored to help you pursue your goals and protect what you've built. If you're looking for a team of fiduciary advisors with the experience and discipline to manage your investment with care, call AIMA at 912-777-4128 or visit AIMAINC.com today. The War Report has been compensated by Abel's I&O Moore and Associates for this endorsement. Abel's I&O Moore and Associates is a registered investment advisor. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The information in this advertisement is for informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal, and past performance is not indicative of future results. I want to thank our friends at Sky Tobacco and need a smoke shop that's always close by. Sky Tobacco and Vape has you covered all over Columbus and even across the bridge in Phoenix City. Whether you're cruising down Airport Thruway, rolling along Victory Drive, or making a pit stop on the 280 bypass, they've got a spot ready for you. From vapes to tobacco to everything in between. Sky Tobacco and Vape is your one-stop shop for good vibes and great deals. Swing through today. Chances are they're already on your way. I want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. The summer may be over, but fall is here, and that means great weather outside. A perfect time to get outside by a Golden's Cast Iron Grill or stay in shape with some Golden's Cast Iron weights. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Also, want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. If you've got some traditional ailments and you're looking for some non-traditional remedies, the Rogue Shop could be the place for you. Our guy, Richard, longtime sponsor of the show. We appreciate him for sponsoring this segment. Do us a favor. Show him some love. He'll show you some back, dropping a little something extra in there for everybody using code REPORT today. And our friends at the Vibe Vault, get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Need that lineup for the weekend, maybe just a fresh cut, or maybe you need a beard trim. The Vibe Vault has a full range of barber services that will leave you feeling and looking refreshed. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. Get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Shrinking the playbook. Jacob, last year, Hugh repeatedly said maybe we just need to shrink the playbook to what the guys understand. You had a young team. You had a lot of true freshmen. You had Cam. You had Malcolm out there. Those guys were young. But you had some veterans as well, too. Peyton Thorne was a veteran. Jarquez Hunter was a veteran. He was a vet. Damari Alston was not a true freshman last year. And I said, okay, I get it, though. I get it. You played a little bit of tug of war with your quarterbacks in year one with Robbie and Peyton, but you settled in to a rhythm in year two. And Auburn moved the ball between the 20s. They just didn't score it very well. This year, I thought would be the end of all that. But here we are having the same conversations. You know that old definition of insanity, my friend, doing the same thing
Yeah.
over and over again and expecting a different result. I- how could you be here? How could Auburn be here in year 3 of Hugh Freeze's tenure with all the resources, with all the recruiting, with the level of talent, generational talent on offense, where you are now talking about shrinking your playbook, and as a result, it's like, all right, well, that's not really a player, that's not a personnel issue. That's a
Right.
coaching issue. But that's what I was saying last year and the year before that. I said, when you look at the way this team is playing, I see coaching issues. I don't see player issues. But there were a lot of guys who have under what guy has come in and and outperformed his expectations since Hugh Freeze has been here, man. Is there a player who came with a certain level of skill and left a better player than they came to Auburn? Because I
Yeah,
would not
that's
argue that Cam Coleman is getting better. He's good, right? He's really,
yeah.
really good, but I don't think he's developing. Perry
Mm,
Thompson, for some reason, is not coming along as a top 30 overall guy, man. You know,
yeah.
who's getting better?
I don't know. It's been a long time. It's so unfortunate because this is probably the best offensive talent you've had at Auburn as a collective since 2017, right? That team that went to the SEC championship game and was a quarter and a half away from being in the college football playoff, right? I don't know. It hasn't been a quarterback. I promise you that. It has not been a quarterback that showed up and gotten better here. We've had quarterbacks, of course, leave here and get better because they go to better offensive systems. You've had receivers do that. You've had running backs do that. You've had offensive linemen do that. I don't know. I genuinely don't have an answer for what offensive player has come to Auburn and gotten better because of it. I mean, you could say Jarquez Hunter just because of the amount of time that he was here and he just got better inevitably, right? But Auburn didn't make him better. Auburn hasn't made anybody better. And in terms of this idea that Auburn wants to what was the word? Hold on. What was the word that he used? They want to simplify the playbook, or he says they want to tighten up the playbook is what he says
Mm,
in this offseason, like, or in this bye week. Like last year the word was simplified because he admitted that Peyton Thorne had too many reads, the receivers had reads, the receivers had checks and things in the middle of their routes. It's like, man, what are we doing here? Coaches have this horrible trend right now, Mike, in all levels of the game in college football, where they are over analyzing the game plan. They are making this so much more difficult than it has to be.
yeah.
I don't claim to be a college football or even just a football coach in general. I talk about it on the radio and I call it on Friday nights in the booth, but I'm not a football coach. But if I can see the issues and you can see the issues and everybody listening and watching into this podcast today can see the offensive issues, why can Hugh Freeze and Derek Nix and his entire staff not figure this thing out? They're making it way too complicated. And they said they weren't going to do that this year. And here we are again having the same problems. And you said it and you nailed it. This is not a personnel player issue. And I said coming into this season, Auburn would not have a talent issue in 2025. And guess what? Talent's not the issue. It's coaching. It's the man on the sidelines. It's the man with the headset and the one who's running the program. He simply doesn't have it right now. And do I think that he could figure it out and get there? Maybe. But I'll be honest with you, I'm losing confidence in that every day. I really, really am. And that's a scary spot to be because Auburn is barreling down the path of being right back where they started. No head coach, no recruits, no talent, and a fan base that is just exhausted from seeing and hearing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, look, you're right. Exhausted, an exhausted fan base. I talk a lot on this channel and over on Locked on UCF about like what happens when a fan base loses hope, right? And when hope starts to wane, ticket sales go down, people start showing up. This fan base has been incredible in
Yeah,
being behind this coach
yeah,
and trying to give him the support that he's asked for in showing up to games, into making Jordan Hare one of the loudest environments. Now, I get what Bruce Pearl's trying to do with this tweet, trying to rally people for Georgia. Like, let's make Jordan Hare one of the loudest ever. I mean, you're not going to rattle Georgia,
Hmm.
right? They already have a respect and a reverence for how hard it is to come into Jordan Hare and get a win. They told us at media days. Kirby
Yeah.
Smart, multiple Georgia players, like, yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but they
Mhm.
expect a war every time they step on the plains. But it's got to be more than that. Those guys have a belief that they're never going to lose.
Yeah.
They do, man. I mean, I saw even in the
As
loss
they
to
should.
Alabama. Yeah, I see it there. I mean, there's a belief, from their players that they're not going to lose, and Jacob, as a result, even when it looks like it's not great, it turns out okay for them, right? Their
Mhm.
floor is playoff,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody was asking for a playoff floor, but they certainly were asking for a 8-win floor.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum.
There was a comment that we received on a recent video that I wanted to read here. I'm not going to put up on the screen, but this commenter said, for the first time as a family, we had the opportunity, both financially and physically, to buy season tickets for the past 2 seasons because my job brought us close to Auburn. Couldn't wait for my kids to experience Auburn football for themselves like I did as a kid, yet my kids have experienced nothing but disappointment and disillusionment. Never pretended for a moment they would win a national championship, but sure was hoping for just a little success, especially with the money that we forked out. No way we will continue to spend money towards a program that continues to digress. It is expensive to get your family to a game.
Yes.
Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day about me and the wife. You were talking about. Remember when we were kids and the movies was a $20 date, like max.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
gas, popcorn, tickets.
The whole thing.
Maybe a hot
Yep.
dog, a big
Yep.
old soda, and
Yep.
now you want to go to the movies, $100 for two
Mhm.
people because you got the big old seats and you got to get there, and tickets are probably like for the IMAX it's like $25 a pop. You're spending money, man.
Yeah.
And in this economy, when people have choices about where they put their dollar, a lot of them are choosing to put it into something that generally has been a good experience for them and their family.
Yeah.
And you've got to reward that loyalty with some wins, man. Here, and not talking about the same things
Yeah.
3 years in a row. Before we get out of here, Jacob, is John Cohen feeling any of this heat at this point? Do you think?
I hope so. I hope so, because at what point do you have to look at yourself, right? And I'm not saying calling for John Cohen's job. I'm
No,
saying
no, no.
you have to look at what's happening within the football program on a deeper level, right? A deeper understanding of this is unfortunately this isn't just a one bad hire, right? The end of the Malzahn era was bad, and the Harsin era was bad, and Hugh Freeze era has not been good, right? And that's not all on John Cohen. I get that, but he's the athletic director. And he's the one whose job is to build the future of the athletics department as a whole. And so you've got to look internally and figure out, man, what is not going right? What are we doing that's incorrect? Or what are we not doing that we need to be doing? And look, I'm not saying for anybody's job to be taken right now, but something has to change. You can't do the same thing over and over and over again and expect better results if you're not changing any variables. That's right. In a science experiment, Mike, they change variables to figure out what's right, what's wrong, what works, what doesn't. That's where Auburn is right now as an athletics department. And you have to do that. And that is John Cohen's job. He has to figure that out right now. And whether Hugh Freeze is the answer.
I agree, my friend. Jacob Goins, ESPN 1067. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yep, you can tune in every single day, Monday through Friday on ESPN 1067, ESPNAU.com. We're on the air 2 to 4 Central Time, or you can always go back and listen to the podcast version of the show on the line on ESPN 1067 or ESPNAU.com.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report, brought to you by friends at SetsForSociety.ai. The road to knowing self starts at Sets for Society. They have custom personality assessments to let you know a little bit more about how you think, how those around you think, how you guys can best think together to achieve like goals. Sets for Society. Get to know yourself, get to know your community, become a better partner, coworker, teammate with Sets for Society. Get your custom personality assessment started there today. We want to hear from you. What do you guys think about shrinking the playbook, man? Again, for a third year straight. or any of the things being said by Hugh Freeze, hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think about all that. And while you're there, do us a favor, smash that super thanks button. Your financial support helps keep the work that we're doing here going. Football may not be going great, but basketball is on the way, and I'm going to be here with my friend Jacob to talk about it all. So please stay dialed in and continue to support the work that we're doing here. Please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.